Today for our clothing unit, we are going to learn a little bit about weaving, how you can weave clothing and weave other items. So I am going to read a book about weaving and then we are going to do a weaving activity. Wild Rose's weaving. Come, child, Grandma said. Come learn how to weave. Wild Rose skipped away. Not now, she called. I'm busy. Grandma got out her loom. Wild Rose ran through the meadow. She kicked up dust and spooked the sheep. This has got to be better than weaving, she thought. Wild Rose, Grandma called, come help me warp the loom. Not now, Wild Rose answered. Now I'm playing. Grandma zigzagged the warp up and down between two strong poles. Wild Rose saw lightning flash far away. She jumped every time it twisted to the ground. This has to be better than weaving, she thought. Wild Rose, Grandma called, come see how to work with these sticks. Not now, Wild Rose answered. Now the storm is here. Grandma slid a stick through the warp and wound it with a string round and round. Wild Rose whirled with the wind. She laughed when the thunder tickled her toes. This has got to be better than weaving, she thought. Come watch me weave, Wild Rose, Grandma called. Come learn. Wild Rose didn't even hear her. Grandma wove back and forth, in and out and in, as the rain poured down. Her weaving climbed up. Wild Rose splashed in tiny rivers, trickling between rocks and brush, back and forth, in and out and in. This was so much better than weaving, she thought. The storm ended. Grandma's rug was finished. Come, child, Grandma said. Come see. Wild Rose stared at the rug. She saw life in its colors. She felt peace in its patterns. How did you do this, Grandma? She asked. Grandma untied the rug from the loom and wound up her yarn and cords. I ran through the meadow, Wild Rose, she said. I laughed with the lightning and splashed in the rain. No, you didn't. You just sat there. Grandma patted the bottom plank of her loom. This is the meadow where I ran. She laid her hand on the top pole. This is the sky. She pointed to the sidebars. These beams are the sunshine. She held up the rug. A rug is not just a rug, Wild Rose. It's a picture of life. We come from the earth, we reach from the sky, playing and growing in sunshine and storms. Wild Rose traced the zigzags with her finger. I want to learn how to weave, she said. Grandma looked toward the forest. Not now, she said. Now I'm busy, Wild Rose frowned. I will teach you tomorrow. Right now, there's something better to do than weaving. Grandma took Wild Rose by the hand, and together they danced under the rainbow. The next day, Wild Rose wove the rainbow into her first rug. She saw life in its colors. She felt peace in its pattern. Nothing could be better than this, she thought. For a weaving activity, there's going to be two different ways you can weave. One way you can weave is with Play-Doh. So if you're going to weave with Play-Doh, you're going to need two different types of Play-Doh, a rolling pin or a can or something that you can roll to make it flat, and a plastic knife. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to have your two types of Play-Doh. You can take them out. Kind of put them in a ball and flatten, and then roll. You're going to want to kind of make long strips to weave. So my Play-Doh is kind of a small container, so I'll see how many strips I can get. So I'm going to make a few long strips. So you can have your child push down the Play-Doh, and you can help them roll and then help them make those straight lines with the knife. All right, so I have these strips. I'm gonna kind of pick them up carefully and put to the side as I get my next Play-Doh ready. All right, you're going to take out your other color and do the same thing. Create a bowl and flatten it. All right, I'm going to kind of take off these little edges. And once again, create strips like I did with the pink. There we go. So I'm going to use my green. I'm going to kind of put them like this. Just remind your child to be careful and to not get upset if it starts to fall apart because it is Play-Doh. So I have my green strips laid out, and then I'm going to take my pink strips and I'm going to lift it up and go under, over, under, over, under, over. And I created my first weave. Then the next, you're going to do the opposite. So you went under this one. Now you're going to go over, under, over, under, over, under. And you can kind of start to see my weaving pattern. You can continue to do this until you use up all your Play-Doh. Now it might be a little tricky. You might need to help your child. But that's how it's going to look. So have Hello there. Another way you can practice weaving is with paper. So if you're going to practice weaving with paper, try and find 2 different kinds of paper. If you only have one kind, that's fine. So I have 2 different colors. You're also going to need a scissors. If your child is going to do the cutting, then try and use a children's scissors for them. It will be great practice to help them cut. And then once again, if your child is going to cut, you're going to need a writing utensil to do lines for them to cut on. All right, so I have my 2 pieces of paper, I have my scissors, and I have my pencil to make the lines for my child. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make lines if I'm going to have my child cut. Not too thin. If you want to use something to make them straighter, you definitely can. So on this page, on the first page, your child can cut all the way across. So cut the lines you or your child can cut. Like I said, it's great practice for them. So I'm putting my strips in a pile. All right, there we go. On the second piece of paper, I also did the lines. And I accidentally did mine all the way to the end, but then I made a line because that's where I'm going to want to stop. I don't want to cut them all the way through. It'll make it a little bit easier for the weaving. So I know it's a little bit hard to see, but you're going to go down and then stop with about 1 inch of the paper left. That will help keep these strips in place so you can weave. All right. So you have these which are attached. Like I said, they have about 1 inch at the end. And you're going to take your other strips. See if I can make this a little clearer. And just like I showed you with the Play-Doh, you're going to go the same over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. Wonderful. And once again, your child is going to need some help with this. Just try your best. So then the next one, you're going to do the opposite. So you're going to go over, under, over, under, over, under, over. And you can see that the weaving pattern is beginning. So you keep going until you've used all your strips and you've created a paper weave. There you go. All right, well, have fun weaving with paper, and don't forget to send me pictures of anything you create. I would love to see them.